Welcome, friends. Welcome to this live stream, and this is the science show. And today we are going to discuss about Mars, and a lot of activity happening on planet Mars, and it's very exciting. And today I would like to basically draw your attention on the latest things which are happening. We know that earthquakes are very common. They occur in almost every part of the earth, even under the ocean. So we know the processes that why earthquake happen on earth. But recently, in past 1 month, scientists have been detecting various types of Mars quakes on the surface of Mars. While some of these Mars quakes are attributed because of some sort of asteroid hitting the surface of the Mars, which creates sort of a micro earthquake, and that has been recorded by the NASA probes on the surface, and we fairly know exactly the difference between Mars quake and any quake which has happened because of the asteroid strike on the surface. Essentially, the way scientists actually capture this information is based on the depth of the quake, the origination of the quake on the surface of Mars. So that is why, because of earthquake activity on Earth, we have very thorough knowledge about how and why the quakes on different planet happens. Now there is one basic difference in Mars. Mars is dead solid. It's like an ice cube. Unlike Earth, which is still molten and a lot of heat, there are a lot of volcanoes, active volcanoes on Earth, and because of this molten structure of the Earth, the tectonic plates create the earthquakes and volcanoes on the surface of the Earth. Whereas Mars is dead solid, and however, recently scientists have been able to detect shallow earthquakes which are basically caused by molten interiors of the Mars, which is molten magma. So that is why scientists are saying that it is not evenly solid. Some portion inside the Mars are frozen, but then there are other portions, for whatever reasons we don't know, more research is required, are still in the molten state. And if there are certain magma which is still in the molten state, then this molten state will molten rock inside the surface of the Mars will like to shift, will like to flow, and because of that some earthquakes are created. But these are all very shallow earthquakes. The difference between the earthquakes which happen on surface on the planet Earth, there are all kinds of earthquakes. Some are shallow, some are very deep, some are extremely deep, and the lava flows can come from quite interior of the planet. Whereas on the surface of the Mars, these quakes are very mild. They are not at all comparable to the earthquakes. The Mars quakes are mild, and they are actually coming from a shallow region. So scientists are believing that there could be little hot magma still present in certain locations in Mars. So these earthquakes have been identified. In fact, certain cracks have been photographed also, as you can see in this picture. So the Mars quakes are basically tearing apart the surface, but then these tears are not very deep, and they fill quickly, and they remove all the evidence of Mars quakes very quickly. And because of that, there is no tectonic plate movement happening on the surface of the Mars. So it's sort of very, very dead kind of a planet. Yet it is showing sign of quakes, and that is what we need to understand. Because if when we send our humans to settle permanently on the surface of the Mars, we don't want to basically land on those places which are showing signs of earthquakes, because or Mars quakes, because we want to keep our human colony safe from these Mars quakes. So that is why it's important to understand all these activities, and because of that, these things are being studied, and that is why I'm also talking to you live in our show. And I have Bubbly saying hello. So hello Bubbly, how are you doing? I will read out, if you have any question on this subject, feel free, and I will read out all the questions and comments at the end of my live stream. All right. Moving on, why Mars is not having the liquid? Essentially, Mars was a small planet when it formed, and because it was a smaller planet, that means it has less mass. It cooled rapidly, and even though the core of the Mars is still very hot, and it is in the molten state, but it does not show the characteristic of the core which is present on the Earth. It is still hot, but there is no magnetism and there is not much activity. The mantle is sort of frozen solid. It's a very thick layer of rock which is solidified, and the core is still hot. So because of this characteristic, the terrestrial activities are not as prevalent as we see them on Earth. So Mansi is saying hello. Hello Mansi, how are you doing? If you have any question, please write the question and I will take them at the end of the stream. Welcome to the show, Mansi. All right, so the core of the Mars is still molten, as I was saying, but it is not having a lot of activities terrestrial activities on the surface of the Mars. Now let's compare the activity or the characteristic of Mars with Earth. How Earth is different from Mars? Well, Earth is completely molten. It has a a sphere on which we live, and the oceans exist. But inside all of that is all very, very hot, and there is Earth is a larger planet, so there is a lot of pressure on the core also. So, and there is a lot of iron and nickel in the core, in the portion which is which comprise of which makes the core of the Earth. So because of this very high amount of pressure, the innermost part of the core does not have ability to liquefy. So it is solid. It's very hot. It's probably the hottest part of the Earth, but it is a solid ball of iron and nickel. Unlike the Mars, which is a liquid ball of iron and nickel, the interior of the core, which is the innermost part on Earth, is solid. And as you come out of the core, the pressure reduces slightly, and the same material, which is iron and nickel, is existing in the liquid form. So the core has actually two layers. One is interior is solid, and then there is a liquid. And since Earth moves in the clockwise motion, consequently the liquid part of the core moves in the opposite direction, and because of this, the liquid part of the metal rubs along with the solid part. And what happens when you actually rub two metals? You get the magnetism, and that is the cause of the very high magnetism which exists on the planet Earth. And that is why there is a very, very basic difference between planet Earth and planet Mars. Even though planet Mars has a liquid core, but it does not have the combination of liquid and solid core, and because of that there is no magnetism whatsoever. So a couple of things will happen for the future human colony. One is the magnetism is not present on the surface of Mars to protect future human colonies from the deadly radiation which comes from the space. Second is the quake activity. Mars quake activity is to the minimum, and if we have thorough knowledge of where and why the quakes are being created on the surface of Mars, then we can choose the right location to send our future human beings at the right place on the surface of Mars. Basically, we can make them land at the right place, so that their life is not disrupted by these sudden Mars quakes, even though they are mild. But we have to ensure that we use our knowledge about the planet and send them at the right location and set up our colony at the right place. And the core of the Mars is still hot, but it is not active. Because of the reason I just explained to you, it is not active, and that is why we should be able to harness this heat when we land there. Maybe we have to build our underground terrestrial habitat and harness some of this energy which still exists in the core. But more or less there will be no surprises, because most of the things are solidified and kind of frozen on the surface of the Mars. And this is something which is recent, and more study is being done for understanding why and how these Mars quakes happen, and it is going to be vital for our future settlement. So I have a few viewers join me from various social media. So let me read out if there are any questions. And I have two viewers, both from YouTube and Bubbly. They are saying hi. Mansi from YouTube, and Bubbly 1176 also from YouTube. They are saying hi. So hello for joining this live stream, which is the science show. And today we covered the Martian quakes or Mars quakes in our live show. So if you have any question, feel free to share your thoughts and comments and questions, and I will take those questions. I will reply to each and every question of yours. You know that I love to take your questions and observations and also suggestions. So for today, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode of Science Show. Until then, you please take care. Bye bye and see you.